thought that was one of the physio exercises. Was the hop up. Well, apparently not. Okay. And if you'd like to come up first. No, you haven't turned that on yet.
Yeah. Just that button.
There we go.
That's the one.
Congratulations, everyone. I haven't been here since you had your election. You're lucky. Anyways, thank you for everything you're doing. As a professional in the area of transgender ideology and a concerned citizen speaking on behalf of the vast majority of the people of Southgate, I'm earnestly requesting that you do not fly the LGBT flag at any Southgate offices. We are the citizens that stand in solidarity with biological facts, human design, physical reality, health, and moralism. The LGBT flag represents a partisan interest which blatantly conflicts with the plurality of interests presented through our great nation, our province, our riding, and our municipality. My suggestion, so this is new for me to actually have a suggestion, so that you don't have to deal with requests annually, is to develop a flag flying policy that only allows for the following legitimate flags that would truly represent our common societal interests to be proudly displayed. Canadian flag, provincial flag, and the Southgate flag. Thank you very kindly for your attention in this matter.
Thank you. We're always happy to have people come out and give their opinion, so I greatly appreciated you were here. Angie.
How does this work?
It's all set?
Oh, so just have to stay here and talk.
That's okay.
Okay. Okay, on behalf of the Southgate Community Farmers Market, since you're all in one room, one place, we thought it would be nice to come out and personally invite you all, as well as municipal staff, to our opening next week. It would be next Wednesday, the 22nd of May, from 4 until 8, and there will be cake. Around, and I'm going to say the approximate time is around 6. And just as I'll just give you a brief overview while I can. There will be a few new faces. We are continuing to work towards getting a broader selection at the market, and we've also come up with a couple of new ideas this year, just to make the market more of a community gathering place. So you have to stay tuned for that. Okay? Thank you.
Great, thank you. There's two of us that definitely won't be there. Jim Frew and I will be in Windsor at the Police Services Board Conference. So I'm not sure what anyone else's schedule, but I'll probably be there the week after. But sale cake, well, yeah, I need it, so it's okay.
We'll set aside a piece just for you.
Okay. Thank you. And again, what you guys have done with that market is incredible. And I even heard rumors that there was other markets getting a hold of you guys to find out how to start up like the same way you did, or what to do like you did.
They were actually looking at best practices and how Southgate got on their radar. I'm not sure. I was trying to get that. But it's a market, much larger market, much longer established market on municipal property. And so I think it may have come in through that avenue, and because there is that relationship between the market group and the municipality.
Super.
So
that's great.
When you
Thank
have
you.
a chance, we'll talk more about it.
Yes, you know I'll be here.
Okay. So
Okay.
have a good night.
Yep.
Folks.
Thanks for coming.
Bye.
Okay, so that was our open forum. So that was good. We're set there. I thought Jim was coming up for open forum now. Can I have confirmation of the agenda as amended, please? Mover? Brian? And Michael? So it's that the be it resolved council confirm the agenda as amended. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Is there any declarations of pecuniary interest, you can declare now or at any time, and there's paperwork to fill out. The next motion, be it resolved that council approve the minutes from the May 1st, 2019 council meeting and council and closed session meetings as presented. Do I have a mover for that? Jim and Jason, any discussion on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Report of officers. Kevin, I'll get the motion going, then we can hear from you. Be it resolved, council receives staff report REC 2019-003 for information, and the council directs staff to not proceed with the Drumore Park concrete pad replacement project with an external contractor, as project bids are all considerably higher than our 2019 capital budget allocation for this work. Do I have a mover for that? Martin? And a seconder? Barb? Okay, Kevin? Anything like that about that?
The report's pretty self-explanatory, really. The prices came in higher than we expected. The lowest price there, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to accept it because it didn't come in on the proper, it didn't meet our purchasing policy. It didn't come in on the proper documentation. Originally, we budgeted the project around $15,000. We feel that we'll go with maybe a limestone base, see if the community uses the facility to the point where maybe we need the concrete pad again, but let's just get it fixed for now and see what the pushback from the community is.
Okay, thank you. And this was run through the rec committee as well, so just so everyone knows. Any questions for Kevin? Okay, Martin.
Kevin, so when the work is done, it's done in such a way that improvements could be added on down the road if need be? That's like you could put right over top of limestone with the concrete, or would that have to be dug out again, or?
That's what we're hoping, that we'll level the building up, go from there, see what the gravel base is underneath the existing concrete pad. If there's no base and that's why it's heaved and moved, then yeah, we'll probably scrape it out, put a good gravel base down, then put a limestone coat over top that's, you know, nobody trips and falls on it, and yeah, we can see where it goes from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? All in favor? That is carried. Next motion. Be it resolved, the council receives staff report CL 2019-015, thank you, for information, and the council appoint Sharifa Carmichael to the Public Liaison Committee for the 2018 to 2022 term of council as of May 14th, 2019. Go ahead and move over to that. Barb, seconder, Martin. Go ahead.
Through the chair to members of council, so this was coming forward because we had another application for the PLC committee, so it's great, and we just wanted council's approval to be able to appoint that individual.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Michael?
I would like to propose the following amendment. Be it resolved, the council add a third clause to read as follows, that council amend the PLC term of reference item 10 that states the PLC will meet with a minimum of once a year or as requested by the public work manager or the chair.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Martin? Any discussion on it? Bert?
Through the chair.
Okay, I didn't do it that time.
Thank you,
She's at the
Michael.
wrong button.
Hitting the wrong button this time. It was operator error. So, with regard to the PLC, they had their first meeting last night, and who's the chair? Who's the elected chair? The chair to members of council, so the new member was actually elected as the chair. So up until there's a person who's appointed as the chair, it's staff who actually chairs the meeting, and she was actually appointed. Okay, congratulations. So This is just changing it, that they'll meet at least once, but there's a possibility of meeting more as required. Through council, through the members of council, that's correct. So, what the requirement is for the PLC committee to meet once a year, no less than that. So
Right.
at any time, if the chair and the public works manager decide to have a meeting, they can call the meeting. But it limits that requirement of having that 4-time-a-year meeting because of quorum issues that they've had in the past. It just makes it a little bit easier. Thank you.
Thanks. Brian?
Just a procedural concern. I have no issue with what Mike's proposing, but I'm just not sure it fits with this motion to appoint somebody to the board. How do you amend that to do what Mike wants to do? And I have no concerns with that, but we're being asked to appoint somebody to the board. Like, I'm surprised the clerk hasn't already slapped somebody about it, challenged somebody about it.
We could check because maybe that has happened. We're not sure.
Maybe it has.
Through Mayor and 2 members of council, so it was actually I who helped Councillor Shearson write the motion. It was on our suggestion. The reason why we felt that this fit, this is really loud. So the reason why we thought that this fit is because complementary to terms of reference, because we needed to have quorum for this. It was just something that was brought up at yesterday's meeting, so we discussed it today. And it was something that was brought up in the past. This is the first time it is coming to council because it is a minor change. We felt that it fit with the appointment, so we can update that terms of reference, and it doesn't.
Go ahead. It won't hurt you.
Yeah.
It
There's a little dial on the side,
yeah,
right near the line.
a volume. Okay, we'll try that now. So I've completely lost the train of thought. So what this does is it reduces staff having to write another report to bring this forward.
Okay, so I've been slapped.
Okay, so on the advice of the clerk, this is a good motion. Not that it was a bad one, but it's Barb.
And I think Councillor Shearson did say that it was discussed at the meeting last night, and the committee itself is in agreement.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about this? Not a chance, okay. All in favor? Oh, Martin? We're almost all in favor.
Almost all in
Yeah.
favor. No, it says here, would be a good fit. What kind of criteria is needed for this public liaison committee? Is it just ad hoc citizens or?
Paul.
Okay, that's good enough for me.
It's hard to fill, but I
How do
mean,
you feel?
any resident, it can be qualified for. It's not like it's a difficult position. I mean, in the early days it was hard, but, we needed people that knew what landfills were about back then, but today it's more just, wow, something to have on. Anyway, just common sense to review based on the annual reports, I would think would be all we're doing now.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to your stuff, Jim. No, we won't. We're going to do the main motion as amended. So the council receives staff report CL 2019-015 for information, and that council appoints Sharifa Carmichael to the Public Liaison Committee for the 2018-2022 term of council as of May 14th, 2019, and that council amend the PLC terms of reference item 10 to state that the PLC will meet a minimum of once a year or as requested by the Public Works Manager or the Chairperson. Any further comments on that? All in favor? And that is carried. Now we'll move on to Jim's stuff. First one, be it resolved, council received staff report PW 2019-039 for information, and the council approved the Dundalk Main Street Reconstruction Project tender award to Moorfield Excavating Limited in the amount of $2,228,965 plus HST for the Southgate portion the council approve the borrowing of the funds required to move forward with the Dundalk Main Street East Water Main Reconstruction Project in 2019, and that the council approve this bylaw contingent on Grey County award of their portion of the tender to be finalized at the Grey County Council meeting on May 23rd, 2019. Do I have a mover for that? Brian? And seconder, Michael? Jim, anything you want to add to that?
Good evening, good people. The tender closed, and Grey County Council, or Committee of the Whole, or however the structure actually works up there, they've already been through one go of approval step with this process, and they'll finalize it in May 23rd. We have that last clause in there. Just by chance, we have been the basically administrating contractor, so if by chance they were to pull out of it and be pre-approved, we would be on hook for all the work and all the bills. So it's just giving us a bit of an out if by chance that, and we don't imagine that will happen, but it's an out if that backfires.
Great, thank you. And just to let everyone know what happens with the county council, they approve something in the committee of the whole, and then it is approved fully until the county council approves the minutes, which happens at the next meeting, so it's well underway. The 23rd. Yeah. Yeah, so it's all set. We did that last Thursday. Okay, any questions or comments? Oh, yeah. You probably will want to be in favor of that next week. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. And I believe that works supposed to start the end of May, if it's all, that's the 28th, I think, is the target. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, we haven't had a pre-construction meeting, so that hasn't been determined necessarily yet, but there's submission that it'll get rolling fairly soon.
Great, thank you. Next motion, be it resolved, council receives staff report PW 2019-040 for information, and the council approve awarding the roads management study request for proposals to Triton Engineering Services Limited in the amount of $25,000 plus HST. Do I have a mover for that? Barbara, a seconder? Michael? Anything you want to add to that, Jim?
Just that it took quite a little bit of review of this study to qualify everybody, not qualify them, just the experience, but the two higher bids were kind of put themselves out of the game pretty early with the scoring ranking the way it was, so the information shared with one of the proponents later this afternoon. He had inquired, so I gave him reasons for scoring, and he accepted those, wanting to learn and move forward with, but it took quite some evaluation to get to where we were.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. Next motion, be it resolved that council received staff report PW 2019-042 for information, and the council approved the tender award of 2 CAT loaders from Toromont CAT for a package price of $242,500, subject to trade-in option. Do I have a mover for that? Jason, and seconder, Martin? Jim?
Yeah, so Phil took a drive down there and looked at the cats and the next closest one to it, and he came back with some good results. The trade-in offer from Toromont Cat is $20,000 per machine, but we've advertised them on GovDeals for a couple of weeks, and right now the one loader is bid at $27,000. So we will be looking at pursuing that. The other option, if we don't get a bid or it's lower than our reserve, it will be traded in. So that number, the base number, will come down on that.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments on this? Martin?
Hi, Jim. I'm not a heavy equipment operator, but the 2015 had 55 hours, and the 2014 has over 4,000. Is that a good range for the price paid, or like, I know Jason and Michael probably know more about hours on equipment like that. I was just wondering.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think from our investigation on these units, it looks like they've been basically used as winter snow plowing type units with a plow on the front. So they haven't necessarily been in gravel pit loading trucks or whatever, but it looks like they've gone lease or whatever and coming back in. Right. Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Well, welcome back, Dave. We're, I see working at home, you've had time to do a few reports. So, for those that don't know, Dave's been off for the last little while, but he, judging from all the reports, hasn't stopped working. So, we'll get into them now. Good to see you here, though. Be resolved, the council received staff report, CAO 2019-048 as information, and the council review the draft Southgate Asset Management Policy and provide feedback to staff on the document. And that council consider approving the Southgate Asset Management Policy at the June 5th, 2019 council meeting. Do I have a mover for that? Martin, and the seconder, Barbara? Dave?
So this is really just a policy to be put in place that kind of fits the guidelines of the ministry's regulations. And what we did was we took some best practice templates from the website of MFOA, Municipal Finances, MFOA, correct? Municipal Finance Officers Association. And we used that as our template and worked with the treasurer and other sources to put this in place. So this is something we need to have in place by July 1st. Wanted to put it before council, give you a chance to review it, and then we'd like to pass it for June 1st or June 5th if we could, to have it in place by that time. But it's really just kind of a guidance document, overarching, to kind of tie some things together for us in relation to climate change and different things that's in the requirements of the regulations.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Be it resolved, council receives staff report CAO 2019-049 as information, and the council approved the Southgate Noise Bylaw dated May 15th, 2019 by Municipal Bylaw 2019-072. Do I have a mover for that? Michael, seconder? Jason? Okay, Dave?
So this one you've seen already, and this one is hopefully coming to pass tonight. And if it doesn't, we can take another look at some things. But we've reported in here what we changed from last time, and then we had some suggestions for some clarity and some good ideas that we received. And we made changes in noise exemptions. And the first change was addition of H, or Section H. And Section H basically talks about fireworks and kind of ties in the fire department to this whole thing, that the discharge of fireworks need to be permitted through a permit from the fire department so they know about it, and that if you don't do that and you cause a problem, you're going to be in contravention of this. So then this puts more liability on individuals that don't comply. The second change was in relation to Section 9D, and this was around the sound reproduction system used for special community sanctioned events. So council would have to be involved in this process a little bit to maybe approve a special event if it was on our municipal property, depending on what the event was and whether they needed approvals. And one event or the other might be like the rodeo. I mean, that was a pretty robust event and needed different types of approvals and participation from the municipality. But there could be special events done public or privately, and then we can get into some other issues. So this policy is basically that the event shall not go beyond 2,300 hours on Friday and Saturday night, and on those Sundays where there's a Monday statutory holiday, and if there's required to go past that 2,300 hours, that they require site-specific approval. So that could just be a blessing of council to do that. But just to give some respect for neighbors, and it all depends whether it's downtown Dundalk or out on the 10th of Egremont or the 10th of Southgate, like a rural area. Maybe we don't really care, but we do have to, in writing making these changes to policy, you kind of have to take the position of people that are trying to have events or having activities, and then the people that have to put up with it next door. The community benefit versus the problems that they may cause. The third change, again, was another tie-in to fireworks in relation to the discharging on private property, and so we did some things there. And then in the fourth change was just to put an offense in place that should they not get, or they create noise from fireworks and they don't have approvals, that there's a fine, and that creating noise from fireworks that in private property can be charged as well. I thought one of these, maybe I've got some wording wrong here, I'll have to check that. I thought one of them was supposed to, maybe I copy-pasted it wrong, but there was one that we were going to charge for not having a permit. So we may have to pull back and just take another look at that, but that would be the only change that we may make. And that would be to the section in the fees and the provincial fences issue. And what we could do this, because these fine things are a bit difficult. Once we get approval, and maybe we can approve tonight just in principle, we need to send these fines off to get them approved by ministry. If they send it back, they may say they want certain words changed, and we'll have to bring it back again to council. So it's a bit of an arduous process, but when we do get it fully in place with the province's approval, then we can go out and legislate levy fines for errors.
Okay. Barb?
Through the chair, so Dave, should we make an amendment just to reflect that you're asking us to approve a bylaw tonight, but we may want to have that revised to include a fine for discharge fireworks without a permit?
Yeah, no, this is right the way it is, because one of them is for public property and the other is private property, so this is okay. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Brian, then Martin?
Just, Dave, do the OPP have any role in this at all?
They don't like to touch noise very well. To be honest, I
I
know, they should have an arm in my mind. I think if we're on site and there's maybe some challenges on site, they would come and support us, but that would likely be the time you want to help, I would say, if we are threatened in any way. But they like to revert bylaw enforcement to bylaw enforcement officers.
Oh, and that's what it's for.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Martin, then Jim?
Yeah, Dave, the $100 fee, I can see that being used for getting back costs and what have you. And it says that it could be waived if deemed a benefit to the community. I did chat with Joanne the last meeting, that there's Ontario Gaming Commission has their standards. Can we have a little bit of autonomy? Because that's basic for the whole province, I would assume. With that waiver, can we have a bit of, what's the word? Can we have autonomy because we know the community better? Can we say, go above or below their standards to get an event going? If I'm saying it.
Really not, I don't see how Ontario Lottery and Gaming tie into this, so.
Well, I was told that they have their own standards.
Yeah, they have
for-
standards, but I don't think we want to start measuring
Well,
towards
that's what
Ontario
I'm saying.
Lottery
We
and
can
Gaming.
We know our community better, so we
Yes.
can say, okay.
And I would stick with that, and if somebody comes and says, hey, we're trying to get something started, we're doing good things, like the one that you brought up from recreation, they're trying to do good things, let's help them and waive the fee. But one thing that I'm seeing, and part of the other things I'm working on right now, this efficiency thing, is a lot of people are saying, stop doing this stuff, we're doing a lot of work that you may not realize and not getting paid for permits. But, you know, we start levying fees, and that's an example. If we start levying fees, will it just go underground? That's the thing that we've got to be afraid. So there's a balancing act, but there's a clear little bit of work processing, and anytime you bring something to council, and what I did was an exercise, and you'd be surprised at what, 5 minutes of value of sitting at this table and here is worth in manpower to make legislation happen when we pass a bylaw or do a resolution. So I should shut up and stop costing time.
Thank you.
You're right here most meetings by now.
Yeah.
Before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jim?
If we ever get this common ticket book, the OPP and by law enforcement will be able to handle the offences.
That's a really good point, because that ticket book is going to be very, very helpful at streamlining things and making it a lot easier.
It's only taken 14 years to get it run,
I'm not there yet.
and we're not there yet.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Next motion, be it resolved, council receives staff report CAO 2019-051 as information, and the council approved the draft council compensation expenses and meeting claims guidance and approval policy number 21 as presented, and the council approved the draft council committee member and staff expense claims guidance policy number 37 as presented, and the council considered the approval of the council compensation expenses and meeting claims guidance and approval policy number 21 by bylaw at the June 5th, 2019 council meeting, and the council consider approval of the council committee member and staff expense claims guidance policy number 37 by municipal bylaw at the June 5th, 2019 council meeting. Do you guys try and do tongue twisters on purpose? Do I have a mover for this? Martin, seconder? Michael? Your turn again, Dave.
Okay, so, don't shoot the messenger on this one, but we've taken a shot at trying to bring this back together, and we've got really 3 policies that kind of come together and work together. Partway through this process, we became aware that policy 21 was taken by council and taken off the books, but it was still on the website. It looked like it was in force and effect, but I'm suggesting, like the way the bylaw was done years ago, it really is not good process of putting policy in place because it has dollars in it, and as soon as we put a COLA in place every year, that's out the window. So it needs to be a policy that's got a schedule that can change on an annual basis and reflect inflationary increases and so on. So what we did is we looked and we just, and there's some things that has been brought up that even policy 2, which is your third attachment, needs to be changed a bit, and I think we're going to wait and do that when we get 21 and 37 really kind of finalized and consummated. And really the idea here is that to get us all in a place where council compensation, that it's consistent and it's fair, and, you know, if we can do that, then I think it'll make streamline the paperwork and the process. But council members are entitled to compensation, and we want to streamline the process. We will review it for consistency, and then if we think there's some issues that isn't consistent with what everybody else is claiming, we'll have a conversation with that individual or individuals to see if there's some misinterpretation by them or staff. And we want to do that before we post on the website, because then that makes it somewhat official when it's posted up there. We'll do some of that maybe in consultation with the mayor, but that's kind of the intent of the policy, and we're trying to put things in place, especially more so in 21, as a guidance document to really say, okay, this is what a council meeting looks like, and this is what a council meeting is, and that's what you get paid. And then if it's a committee type meeting, that's what it would be, what a whole day meeting, what a half day meeting looks like as far as time. The issues of conferences and travel from distances that I'm not sure that it's fair that, you know, the conference may really be half a day, but you take 2 or 3, in some cases, 6 hours to get home from the conference. If you can't, in my mind, I looked at it as if I was in that person's shoes claiming. I also looked at it from the standpoint of what would a taxpayer think. I mean, I try to do those things. And to me, the fairness is if that person can't get back to their job at 12 noon or 1 o'clock after a lunch break to do their regular work they do to, you know, keep bread on the table, then I think that's not a half-day meeting, it's a full day. So anyway, those are the kind of things we try to do, but we'd ask you to review it, give us feedback, and see what you think. We may have missed some things, but we tried to cover all the bases, and we need more eyes to look at it, and this is where it's at right now. The policy 37, we took that as more, it was originally more of an employee compensation, or kind of direction on expense claims and meeting claims. So sorry, I'm on the wrong one. That's the wrong title. 37 is what we're calling it now is the council committee member and staff expense claims guidance policy. And really it just gives guidance in relation to the claims that we want, you know, they need to be processed every 3 months. If they're beyond 3 months, they could be rejected, so let's get them in. And it gives guidance around processing in the last quarter that we need them in by December 31st, because they should be dated to be in that business year. The budget was ended December 31st, so we need the expense in by that time. Anyway, the rest of it I think is pretty straightforward, but I think at that point, the best thing to do now would just be entertain questions for clarification, and we can get the right changes in place and bring it back next meeting or the meeting after.
Thank you. Jim?
Did just gives us, how does that relate to that before?
Sorry. Thank you, Jim, for bringing that up. We did not do anything, and I knew it was somewhere, and I found it after this report was submitted, but that we had implemented a daily meal allowance. That everything, what is in here related to a daily meal allowance will be incorporated into Schedule A of 21. So that any of those dollars and cents gets into a schedule. If council changes something by resolution, we don't change the policy, we go and change the schedule.
Thank you. Barbara?
Through the chair, to that the resolution that was passed to the number 2018483, it also mentions that we, in the previous term of council, approved increasing the maximum number of conferences per year to 3. I know that that was all budget pending, and I noticed that the policy, and I'm actually supportive of the policy, saying that we may attend 2 conferences per year, because if there are other conferences that are of value, we can always bring them back, and if budget permits. It's just that expectation of, well, it does, I may attend 3 conferences, so I shall. So what are you proposing, Dave? Because you handed us this where the resolution says 3, but the policy that is being proposed says 2.
So, thanks for putting that one out as well. We will put 3 in because that's what has been passed by council. If council wants to revert back to 2, that would have to be part of, because this motion is in force and effect right now, basically.
And up until August this year, we need to, it would have to be a reconsideration. Go ahead, Barb.
So through the chair, I know that I asked you about standing committees. Are you referring to like the old, what we used to call standing committees where you had a lead, or are you referring to our council-appointed committee, like recreation, like the, I don't know, any of the PLC?
Well, they're called, depending on what, but I think a standing committee is correct, is that format we had years ago where there was a chair and a vice chair and 3 people would sit on a committee, like general government. And now, committee of council, we've tended to talk about that more as that is the recreation committee, for example, and that's really the only one we've hung on to. Like a special advisory committee, maybe like we're doing with fire, you could call that a standing committee. I mean, it all depends on the terms. I think I wouldn't worry about whether we have it or not. That's had in the policy. If you pull it off the shelf, you can use it because it's here.
Okay.
And it's in the document to support what you do. Because we don't want to make decisions going forward and then have to go back and change a bunch of policies. Make your policy fairly generic and capable of entertaining change.
Okay.
And to me, you use standing committees, when you use committee of the whole, when you use council, when you use committees of council, you kind of covered it all. I mean, task forces and working groups that we have in our community action plan, to me, that can be just more of a committee or half-day.
Okay. I just wanted to understand. I know that we had gotten rid of the term, and I didn't know if we wanted to keep it in the policy if we were no longer using the term. Am I permitted to ask a few more questions, Mr. Chair? Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
On policy 21, you have suggested that the members, I'm just going to that now, the members would be entitled to logo merchandise. Could you elaborate on that? Because, and there's a value there. Wouldn't it, if we were to, as a council, agree that access to logo merchandise, like I'm going to suggest that county has some clothing that you can choose from, and you would have an allowance up to a certain amount so that when you go to a conference, you're wearing something that says the Township of Southgate. I'm wondering if that's what you have in mind, or if you're suggesting that we have a budget of $100 and we can go out and buy merchandise from somewhere. That I wouldn't support. So just to clarify with that, if we were to approve that addition, would it not be best served to have the value in Schedule A in case that value changes?
So this type of value isn't something that's inflated. It could survive, 5 or 10 years possibly. I only put this in because I've seen it in other municipal policies along the lines of council compensation. So I thought, let's put it in there. It should, for council to consider, not staff to think whether it should or shouldn't be. So that's the reason it's in there. There was an elevated change from mayor to council members and so on. But the only thing I did was, I thought, this is a bigger center, we're a bit smaller, I reduced the amount, that's all I did. But again, I just threw a number there. You can change it to what you want, you can eliminate, not going to hurt my feelings, but I thought it's not for staff to say, well, they shouldn't have logo merchandise, if that's what council wants. I mean, you need to represent your community pride too. But anyway, that's a consideration that I thought should be in there based on what I've seen in other policy and other jurisdictions.
Okay.
So if I may follow up on that, and it's not that I'm not unsupportive of the idea, we go to conferences and we see it all the time where people are wearing, you know, a township jacket and it gives that recognition, and you're right, you represent your municipality with pride, but I would be inclined to support there being a number of items that we might select from so that there's consistency, there's the, you can take advantages of minimum quantities, rather than us having a, you know, an allowance to go out and order pens, just so that there's some consistency.
I mean, just to kind of keep the dialogue going on that, I think that would be something that you would have a discussion at budget time, and, you know, if a decision was made to put $500 in there, you all want to have T-shirts or some sort of a pullover or a jacket or whatever. That can be done at budget time, and then this policy is a provision to allow that kind of thing to happen.
Thank you. Any further questions from council? Jim?
Isn't a lapel button enough?
Brian?
Sure, it is. Question on 37, Dave, at the bottom there. It always seems to be a bit of a concern when you have members of the public come to, for instance, Police Services Board, and they don't perhaps know the process, how to submit their expenses. I see now, is this an attempt, the proposal here, is that an attempt that the township will now keep track, and at the end of the year will automatically issue a check for the per diems for that member of the public?
Yes. To make a long story short, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure we'll
Good.
reimburse them annually. We might do it quarterly,
Well,
depending on how active, obviously, the PLC,
Yeah,
you know,
whatever.
likely. But if they're more active, that they're meeting, you know, but that's a discussion that we haven't really had yet at staff level. But I think it seems to be like pulling teeth. Why not just the person's here, we'll track it through the recording staff and process it for them.
I agree. I'm not concerned about the timing. Members of the public aren't necessarily aware of our process, so it's just easier. We track it and just pay it out at the end of the year, or whenever. Thank you.
Yep, good point.
And the button's fine.
The button's fine?
The lapel button.
Oh, the lapel button's fine. Any other questions or comments on this? Barb?
So I still have a couple of questions for discussion with council. And if that's council, I didn't suggest the logo merchandise, but I know we've been talking about it, so it's nice to see there was an option. We've been trying to pull back on our budget because we're expecting that staff are pulling back on their budgets. Should we be following in the county's footsteps and restricting our conferences to within Ontario as opposed to anywhere within Canada? Because I know airfare to Vancouver is quite expensive. You know, there's trains and planes and automobiles, but I'm just asking the question to get a feel for what everyone else is thinking. I mean, I reviewed all of the documents, and I'm asking that. The other thing that I had was just a minute. To Deputy Mayor's point about the staff are now going to submit all of the per diems for the members of the public. And I think that's great because some, like you said, you might not realize that they even get paid or how to do it. But I know that there have been from time to time members who don't want to be paid, and I don't want to ask them and put them in that spot, but to know that they would have that option. Could, I guess, yeah. They could donate it somewhere. Okay. Right. Yeah. Just, you know, 'cause I know that it has come up in the past, and
That would be an individual's option to
Yeah.
let staff know,
right.
and that could be done through whatever.
So I guess that's my only question, is about whether or not we should be restricting our conferences to within Ontario.
Okay. comments? Martin?
How many conferences are inside Ontario? Like, how many do we can go to, and why would we go to Vancouver?
Dave?
Yeah, there's really only one, and that's FCM, and I think we've been missing out on that a bit. We're gonna go to Quebec City to that one this year. It's in Toronto next year. I think we should consider, more people going to that, when it's in Toronto for sure, to kind of get that feel. While I was off staring at the wall, I decided I'd go into FCM and see what's there. And I've got them saved on my computer. I wanted to run them tonight, but I didn't get all the time I needed to do that. But I went through, and there's somewhere in the order of 6 to 8 funding opportunities that we could apply for. I think it could fit our needs here. We're working on one now with FCM and a company that wants to do a pilot project. So we'll look at explain that more. But the future is, I think, about trying to source funding through these different mechanisms. And yeah, it's not cheap to go to conferences, but if you can reap some other rewards, from the standpoint of travel, you get on a plane, you can go a lot of places for $500. You talk about driving to some places in Ottawa or to Windsor. It's pretty near gobbles up that much, to get there and back too. So, I can see. I know there's municipalities that send people to the American Water Works Association over North America. I don't see the value in that because we've got a good Water Works Association in Canada. But FCM, they have a lot of federal money that we haven't. We've been fairly successful in provincial funding, but it's drying up pretty hard right now. We know that, so we've got to look at other ways. But I think we have to be cognizant of we're a small municipality too, but I think we should leave the doors open to those opportunities. And I'm not saying all rush down to Quebec City or to Vancouver, but I think next year when it's in Toronto, we may want to take advantage of that and take a deeper look at a few more people.
Thank you. And I think doing what we did this year, where we've sent one member of council, Ryan's going to Quebec for that, to bring back the information. I think doing things like that instead of having multiple people traveling is beneficial too. Any other questions or comments on this? Okay, we got a full agenda, so last, go.
But there were 3 policies on this report, and they're of value, and they were really well done. But I have expressed it in the past, and I'm going to express it again because it was suggested by the CAO that we have this discussion. When we're talking about the legislated requirement to publish our remuneration annually, 3 months into the following year, isn't that kind of like closing the door after the horse has left the barn? We passed a resolution because there were complaints against members of council in the previous term about not being transparent, about going to conferences without approval, delayed expenses, and I just think that just because we don't have to doesn't mean that we shouldn't. And I think quarterly remuneration updates, or even if it was semi-annually, let's get a picture of where we are in budget, because it's going to help us determine, hey, there's a conference coming up in September that we didn't know about. Where are we? How can we afford to send a couple of people? I think it's important that we not take away in the that additional transparency on how we are doing in our accumulated budget, as opposed to looking at our expense reports online month to month, having to go through 7 reports and trying to track that, or a resident trying to track that themselves. It's a nice snapshot.
Okay. Dave?
So we have to remember that takes time. It'd be interesting to see how many hits we got on those sites. I'm not sure. Well, it'd be interesting, but I'm not sure that we don't get calls about councillors' remuneration. I think the staff time it takes to post that on a monthly basis, you know, would it be better biannually rather than, but, that's a discussion for council. I mean, you know, the flip side, we're doing this process and we're also going through an efficiency thing. So, you know, what is the cost and what's the reward? You know, transparency costs money too. So, but if we can find a better way, there's suggestions that maybe you can claim your expenses online and then we can post them much easier too. So those are discussions. I mean, if we can find a quicker, faster, easier way to do it through efficiency, but, to go through a process of, you know, review and then putting it on a template that we have to create, put it up, if we can short circuit some of that stuff, maybe that's a way to do it.
Thank you. Any further questions? Okay, I'll call a question then. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, be it resolved, Council received staff report CAO 2019-053 as information, and the Council approve awarding the Dundalk Arena Auditorium Building Upgrade Project request for proposals to Dom Construction at a cost of $375,000 plus HST, and the Council approved the allocation of the township portion of the project funding from the Eco Park Community Enhancement Dundalk Reserve Fund of no more than $80,000, and the council authorized the release of the already council-approved elevator lift RFP to receive proposals for this project. Do I have a mover for that? Michael, seconder, Martin? Dave?
So this whole thing has been a bit of a journey, and since we it was a good thing we did the drywall thing, removed it, got rid of it. Once we kind of tore that off and got back into behind the scenes, the contractors that looked at it were able to do a better job of quoting. And unfortunately, we didn't get a lot of contractors, but the two bids we did get were pretty close when you factor in that the second bid that we did not accept. He didn't quote on the piece of insulation and facade steel change on the outside and so on. So it ended up that really Dom was the best bid that gives us, I think, everything that we're looking for. And anyway, that's about really it, unless there's any other questions. I mean, the insulation was severely deficient on that building. It was closer to a barn, but anyway, it's good that you know, we're going to definitely make it more energy efficient and give it a facelift. Now have some more use, and I think we're in a position now because of the funding opportunity to go ahead with the elevator lift as well and proceed with that. So anyway, we're going to be able to utilize the Grey County funding that they've got from the province to do a lot of the washroom stuff as far as accessibility and the project, and then the elevator lift piece, there's sufficient to do it, and some more accessible stuff, and then we will have to tap into 8,000 or so. I think it's likely to be closer to 70. One thing that I want to make sure council understands is a couple of things that we didn't put in the bid or the proposal responses we were looking for was flooring and alarm system. We thought that it would be better to stay with alarm system providers from the area that we know and worked with, and we'll get likely a lot better bids. And why pay like a 10% or 50% uplift on that cost when we could do it ourselves and purchase that locally through a tendering process. And the other one was the flooring. If we said, okay, we want you to fix the flooring, you know, we didn't know when we went into this how much we were going to interrupt flooring. Some may not be impacted at all as far as the auditorium, where the more gymnasium thing will be, or the bigger meeting room. But the washrooms, and we have flexibility of what kind of flooring we want there as well, and give local bidders the opportunity, again, with an uplift.
Thank you. Questions? Oh, Barb has a question.
One question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You referred to funding for the elevator. Did we hear back from Canadian Tire Jumpstart?
No, but we do have an opportunity that I can't talk about at this time.
Okay,
We have to be silent until they make their announcement.
thank you.
Thank you. Any, Brian?
Is there any standard that the building needs to be insulated to, like homes are R22 or R40? Will the arena have any kind of a metric as to how well it's insulated?
So we went with the recommendation, and both contractors, I think, recommended R24 for the walls and 28 for the ceilings. So that's what we're going with.
Good, thank you.
And from what I understand, the ceiling is, the wood ceiling that's there is staying, the insulation is going up above?
Yes and no. The beams will still seep. The wood in between will be covered. Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments, Brian?
Is there anything, and I didn't see anything in this RFP related to the sound system? Because that facility has had a notorious history for sound problems.
We're not going to even try for the sound system. If we have sound system, we'll just bring, local equipment. The sound system in there has never worked right, unless you keep a system down low and focused. It's the echo up and above, and we just don't see that any kind of trying to put a sound system in there would be good investment dollars, and for the amount of use that it's going to get at those kind of gathering facilities, I think it's more of a microphone at the front for a banquet or something, but it just, that is not a place for a system to be installed so that you think you're going to get something.
Well, I don't disagree.
Yeah.
It has been a challenge, and a big challenge over the years, but it seems rather disappointing. We're going to spend $500,000 on this puppy and the sound system. But maybe we can do something in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Be it resolved, Council received staff report CAO 2019-054 as information, and that Council approved Southgate Fire Department job descriptions for the positions of volunteer firefighter and volunteer fire captain. Do I have a mover? Brian, and the seconder? Michael? Hi, Mitch.
Hey, everybody. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's just a job description. We're currently hiring. This way, when they start, we give them the job description. They know what they're expected to do going forward. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. This is what your job description is. This is what we expect of you. And then those grounds, if they decide they don't want to do that, well, you were told this at the start. They're going to get a contract, code of conduct and all that at the start. So, just a good way to enforce the job.
Thank you. Any comments or questions on this? Thanks for coming out. Seeing no questions, all in favor? And that is carried. Thanks for the work you did on that. Well, it's you again. Be resolved, the Council received staff report CAO 2019-055 and information, and the Council approved the Volunteer Fire Department staff pay grade for hourly and fire practice rates effective June 1st, 2019. Mover for that. Michael and Barb. It's you again, Mitch.
Okay, so this one, I kind of did a lot of research from departments all around, called every single chief all around the area that I know, and got all that on attachment one there. You'll see a grid, shows everybody what they make, stuff like that. My thoughts were, if a guy is going inside a fire versus a guy that's going to stand outside a fire and just do accountability on some notes, they don't deserve to get the same rate. Their life's not really on the line. So I created a class system, fourth first, first being the highest, fourth being last. It's the same thing that's used in full-time services. So we start as a fourth class, and then there's opportunity to move and jump a class, but it'll take a minimum of 2 years and then training as well to get that top rate. And by doing that, it can help out with the budget a little bit, and I've also put in for that raise to $35 for practice. We're kind of behind on everybody, so hopefully you guys approve it. We get $35 per practice, and we'd like to go to weekly practices, and the previous chief did put money away in budget for that. He had did an hourly rate, so we would get our hourly rate for each hour, which would be a little bit more than $35 for that practice rate. I talked to the department members, made sure they were okay with it before I went and told them, hey, you're not going to get your hourly rate, we're just going to do another flat rate. Make sure they didn't get angry at me. So they all agreed that they'd rather see more training. So because the money was put away and we're half through the year, it's a good trial thing for us that we can do practices weekly. And at the end of the year, we'll see how much money it did cost us, and then I can bring it next year in the new budget and council for approval to always go.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on that? Barbara?
Through the chair, thank you, Chief. And I'm delighted to see that we're finally making this go forward to at least better compensate them for their training. And if you're going to increase the training, but have, so is it about an hour and a half training session?
So we practice first and third right now, so we get roughly 12 actual practices of training a year because the second practice is always a truck check. So going forward, we might change that too and go to a different route, and then we can practice every single Tuesday. But for the time being, we're going to make that practice the truck check last Tuesday, and then that during the rest of the month, every Tuesday will be a training night. So we can be above and beyond that minimum, because there's a certification that's going to come back. It started and got put back. So it's coming back. It's a matter of time. The Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs is pushing for it now. They want certified firefighters. And with Grey County Training Association now up and running, there is a chance that we might be able to train our guys and get them fully certified to the same level like a Toronto firefighter or Mississauga or any firefighter that comes out pre-service. But we just have that within our own township. But we're not going to get there by doing a first and third, only training 12 times a year. It's just, we're never going to get there. So this is a big step that we need to do.
Just clarify, but is each training session about an hour and a half?
Right now, it can be 2.5 hours, 3 hours, depends on the night, because we're trying to cram so much into one night. Whereas going forward, we can maybe cut back practice to say an hour and a half. Be like, okay, well, it's the middle of summer as well. Let's do an hour-long practice. Next week, maybe be a little longer. It can change, or we take a week off here and there.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Brian?
I know a guy that used to work for Toronto, and I'm not sure it's that big a deal. But anyway, that aside.
I could agree.
No comment.
I've heard that there has been some challenges trying to get people out to practices. Will more practices make that more difficult, or is there going to be some pushback on that, or how are you going to handle that, Mitch?
I think there's a possibility, but for the guys that are coming to the guys from the practice is the same crew every time. The ones that don't come to practice is the guys that have put, for example, Don Benal says 40 years. He's not a guy that's going to fight a fire. I know if I need someone to drive a truck, he's going to be there. So I don't expect him to come to every practice because he's not a frontline firefighter. But for my guys that have just started, that are recruits and stuff, like I'm expecting them to be frontline guy who's going to go in the fire versus that. I think might be for the first bit, the biggest struggle is going to be trying to get training up and running because it's so much work for myself as well as my officers to make sure we have those lesson plans laid out for the practice. I think there might be, but from what I've heard from the guys, like I talked about it with them, maybe go whereas you can see on Wellington, they do 2 practices on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off. I asked if they want to do that, and they're pretty adamant they want weekly practices. So.
Good, thank you.
That's good. Dave, then Michael.
Maybe I'll supplement that. I mean, I just want to say first, Mitch did a lot of work on this, and I was kind of his stenographer putting this together. He did a great amount of work, but I want you to make sure you look at this whole chart that's attached at one. I think, maybe excluding the fire practice rates, we were pretty close to being on par with others. So, but I think the one thing, to go to Brian's question, I think by creating these classes, we're kind of saying, hey, here's an opportunity. If you come out to practice, this incentive to jump up the scale. And I think that works. It works well here. And so So I think putting the grid in place was a good suggestion, and Mitch has done a lot of work to get these numbers, and I think it works well, and we'll see where it goes.
Michael?
Yeah, I want to commend you, definitely was a great job. But I'm kind of wondering, can you work with the other firefighters and do your training amongst groups? And then, weekly basis or whatever, like go to another hall? So you're not doing all the work yourself here, that say you meet in Flusher and you do a certain training there on a Tuesday, or, you go to, Shelburne on a Wednesday or something like that, like, so the training, so that you're getting enough people there, that you're getting 20 guys in a room or something like that for training, that it's not just yourselves doing it at Dundalk, but it's the same training that you're getting,
So I went to a Grey County training meeting on Monday, Monday night, and there's talks now of Grey County. They want the chiefs, or training officers, I guess I would say, because I'm not even supposed to be at that meeting because I'm the chief, but I go anyway. So too bad.
Good.
Nobody else can be that night, so I usually go. But so there is talks of they want to. I'll use Wellington County for an example. They have a full-time training officer who looks after the whole county of Wellington. He trains all of their guys. He makes the practices. They can all go from place to place. And there is talks of us maybe going to that, but it's still pretty far in the future, and it would take a big budget cut, because now you're looking at a guy who's going to be making a minimum of $110,000 a year, and every single station has to be, or department has to be on board with this. Where is he going to be situated out of? But as for going to different departments, it is hard because everybody has their own SOGs on how they run and their own equipment. So, for example, Grey Highlands, like they have 2 stations, right? So for them to train is a lot easier. So, say Markdale, my friend is on Markdale, and he's training out, or part-time training out there. So if they miss a training in Markdale, they can go to Flushington the following week, or that following night. Whereas we don't really have that option. So a good way to word it is, it would work, but it also wouldn't work, because we would have to catch up on what they're doing and learn how their ways were doing. Or I don't think it would be beneficial. Whereas if we can get these lesson plans out, and for right now, even as we're hiring, I've got 6 applications in the first day, and they're all certified people. So for the most part, I think there was one that wasn't, but these are all certified people that are coming here, because it is so hard to get a job in the fire service somewhere full-time. Say, for example, I've had 9 interviews for full-time firemen. Still have a job with them, right? Now I'm full-time here for you guys. But it is a hard.
Yeah.
We all know.
Yeah, we sorry for your luck.
We're gonna keep sending those letters that don't hire. Just so you know, okay?
Bad guy. So it is hard to get a job, so people are coming back to being a volunteer, so they don't lose that. And once we get more people, and it is a lot of younger people that are applying, so like people that are my age or younger, that are applying and willing to learn and want that training. So once those start coming forward, and every time we get hired, those are the ones that keep coming to practice. The ones that are coming to practice right now are those senior guys that they're going to show up and run a truck if I need it. I know they're going to be there when the call comes out, but they're not the guys that are going to be in the fire.
I did want to make mention that I see that you collaborated on ladder training.
Yeah, so because we partially own their area, I guess, from my knowledge, when I was in West Bay, we paid a percentage when they got the original one, so they wrote that one off, rolled over, and got this new truck. And I've been asking, I had asked for the last 3 years, and we just couldn't fit it in with that minimum requirements we needed. This time we had an opening for practice, so I just gave a phone call out, and it was a good experience. Everybody was happy. So we're going to try and get Shelburne here as well, because we called them before for when we had that fire at Liztech. Shelburne came as well. So getting to know our mutual aid partners is good for our guys.
Awesome.
That's great. Martin?
Yeah, it's a good job doing this work, Mitch. And I really like the idea of the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st class, because as Dave said, it is incentive. I was just wondering, it says no auxiliary staff, all hired as 4th class firemen. Is that just a name change, or is it a level of proficiency difference between the two?
So right now, auxiliary is said to be no pay. They get a $200 stipend for the year. That's all they get. We don't pay them for training. We don't pay them for calls. So, I guess I only have 3 left now from this last hire that stayed. Another one just put in his letter of resignation today due to family issues. But, so those guys, they just went to the college, for example. I don't pay them. They're out of their own time. They've made, the two that are still on have made lots of calls, the same amount as anybody else. I don't pay them for that. It's all basically like, almost, you could consider it slave labor, basically. To some extent, like, there's no compensation for them. And I believe if you leave your job during the day, you do deserve to get compensated in some form. I still don't plan on giving them money for training. That kind of shows your commitment to the department. If you don't want to take time to go do the training, then you're not going to get the money. Like Dave said, it's that incentive to go forward. So I've kind of moved it. Everybody will be hired as a 4th class, so that you will get paid, you'll be hired on, but you still are a recruit in a probationary period of 1 year minimum. And then if, for example, the person that's hired as 4th class leaves for a year, 6 months, even after job change, leaves for 6 months, I'm not going to hire you as a 4th or a 3rd class and move you up. I'm going to leave you as a 4th class until you come back because you prove yourself. There's no point in giving someone more money to not be here. Is my mind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? I think these are all positive moves, and I'm a big fan of going through the rank system like that. It also gives a sense of accomplishment. Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. Be resolved, the council receives staff report CAO 2019-056 as information, and the council approves the fire department purchase of a Ford F-250 crew cab 4x4 pickup truck be awarded to Blackstock Ford, Orangeville, Ontario, at a price of $46,182 plus HST, and the council approves the fire chief to explore the best value for the pickup truck Ford F-150 through either government deals or by trade into Blackstock Ford, Orangeville, Ontario. So I've moved for that. Brian and Michael? Okay, you want to talk about your truck?
So I chose Blackstock because they were $20 cheaper than Trillium. I was interested to see as when I handed them the tender who would actually come cheaper or if they would be spot on the same, and it was pretty crazy to see that they were $20 cheaper. And even on top of that, they included the base alternator that Ford offers and the power telescopic mirrors. They included about $1,200, I think it was, roughly, in extras, and were still $20 cheaper than Trillium. On the side note, Trillium had offered a $2,000 trade-in, so afterwards it wasn't part of the tender, so I asked Blackstock what they would offer as well, and they ended up coming back with $2,250, so even more on a trade-in as well. But there is the option that could go to gov deals as well. It's more of where the perfect example is with the loader that the works department is doing. Other than that, I ended up getting a really good deal on the emergency lighting. I went to the trade show. Our truck's probably going to go to, probably sign a contract with them to do it. It will go to the trade show next year, so all the fire chiefs from Ontario will see our truck, all the decals and everything, and they're going to throw about $5,000 to $10,000 worth of lighting free of charge. So it was a really good deal. Just saying them too.
It's a good way to do it. Yeah, no, that's a good way to do it for sure. Any questions or comments about this? I think the last one's a 2001, and that was about used for us, so I think we got mileage out of it.
It's been a while since I wrote this report, but I think we did indicate in here, it's a multiple purchase, and there's still a sliding device for in the back, and he's working on that too. So who knows what kind of deal we'll get there. But anyway, so it's a multi kind of stage approach, but this is pretty efficient compared to what I thought we might have to spend.
Right?
What color is it?
Beautiful race red.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? You got yourself a fire truck. When is the delivery, tonight?
I was hoping it was going to be fast, but I guess 250s are a little bit longer, so hopefully they're looking into July.
Okay,
And then the lights take about a week, so we'll have the truck in service for the whole of August, hopefully.
Good. Maybe we could talk the paper into having a picture or something. Okay, thank you very much. Good to see you out with, especially with those reports. Be it resolved, council receives staff report FYN 2019-022, 2019 grants, donations, and funding be received as information, and the council approves a contribution of $450 to Holstein Agro Expo funded from the 2019 donations budget. Do I have a mover? Jim and Martin? Liam?
So as was mentioned at the last meeting when I brought my grant report forward, regarding the Holstein Ag Expo, that was missing from that report. I went back and reviewed my emails, and we did indeed receive a request for that. So this is a report for considering that request. So the request was for $5,000 out of the solar fund. However, the solar fund is currently overcommitted, so I'm not recommending any more approvals come out of the solar fund. Whereas the donation budget had $450 that has been uncommitted at this point, so that is what I'm recommending we provide to the Holstein Agro Expo.
Thank you. Any questions? Brian?
I'm not sure that it's really fair to the request to say, oops, we screwed up. Honestly, I'm not questioning that. Stuff happened. It's not fair to the request, but because of our oversight, and that's all that's left. Had the request been there all along, I think maybe they might have realized maybe a little more on their request. I'm not suggesting they would have got the full $5,000, but I think they might have got more than $450. So I would propose an amendment, if anyone would care to second it, that we give them $2,500 on the basis that $50,000 from the Southgate Solar Fund is going towards the TAPS, or the transportation project of the road over in western Southgate. But we've seen from an earlier report that in fact we've already saved $44,000 on the loader project. So TAPS is maybe a little bit flush, at least at this point. They maybe wouldn't need that full $50,000 from the Southgate Solar. Maybe we could pull back a little bit and give Southgate Solar, or give the road project, I guess it would be $47.50 instead of the $50,000. So that's a long amendment, but that's the gist of what I'd suggest, that we give them $2,500 and fund it through the rejigging of the contribution to the road project.
Do I have a second for that? Okay, Jim's going to second that. So, for discussion. Yes.
It's my understanding that the request for the expo was in November of last year, and that there's a number of calls made to confirm that it had been received. And at the last council meeting, our treasurer said he couldn't get everything. Am I correct in that?
At the last meeting, I didn't recall receiving that, and that's why after that meeting, I went back and reviewed my emails, and in November that request was in there. I know there was follow-up on the Ikermut whole fireworks. That was what I thought those calls were regarding. I didn't realize it was the Holstein Agro Expo that person was asking about.
Thank you. Barb?
We only give $1,000 for the annual fireworks festival. And we've contributed a fair amount to the Optimus building, which we get a benefit from. Do we know, I know that there are competitors that come from around the world, but we haven't even been presented with, how many people actually attend the Agri Fair? Is it, I'm just wondering why $2,500. I think we should be comparable to other organizations and other events, but I'm supportive of the, clever accounting that we're coming up with.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, in fact, one of the World Championship sheep shearers is living in Southgate. So we do have a history of people that have that skill here. And the a large sheep industry in Civita. It's well attended. I've been to it the last couple of years. It's well attended, and it does, they do offer the option of a bus ride up to the solar farm to have a look at the solar panels. So it does bring a lot of visibility to our township and our economic development through the solar fund and also through the sheep industry and agriculture in general. And this year, I understand they're going to have a antique tractor display as well. So it does bring in a broad diversity of spectators, and it is not an Optimist run event. So it's not tied to the fireworks or to the Optimist Hall in any way. So it's a little hard to compare it that way. $1,000 for the fireworks is all they ask for. So I'm still happy with the $2,500.
Thanks, Dave, and then Barb.
Yeah, so just wanna, I think we need to be careful about pulling from the roads budget, even though it came from, even though it came from the solar fund, I understand that budget likely will be over on that project pretty tight. You know, we do have a pretty big commitment through a community action plan to commit to roads, so I'd hate to see pull back on that, but maybe I'll ask the question is, I mean, if there's better ways to fund it, and could it not be funded from, say, the community fund in the Eagle Park? Because it is it's an agriculture event that crosses over the whole municipality. Is there room there for some of that? Like at least going $2,000, let's say?
There's room in the Eagle Park Reserve. However, I believe the intent of the Eagle Park Reserve was sort of like the east part of the township, and the solar farm reserve was for the west part of the township. That was just my comment on that.
What I would suggest is that I wouldn't necessarily tag it. It's more of an agriculture event than just because it's held there. But that's just, I want to make sure that, you know, we do have a commitment to roads we need to stay with in that project. I'm understanding just from caucusing here, maybe tighter than we expect, but I think it may be.
Thanks, Barb.
So, thank you, Deputy Mayor Milnes, for the education, because many people aren't aware what the agri-fair is. I have attended it. It is well attended. It is pretty impressive, and I was aware of the sheep industry. I'm also aware that they do farm tours, so it's a huge educational opportunity for anyone who wishes to get on the bus and see agriculture up close and personal. Could we borrow from the Eco Park Fund, and when the Southgate Solar Fund is replenished, repay it? And I would suggest the $2,000. But could that, and we could take $495 from the donation fund, or I'm not sure what everyone's proposing, but could we do that? Borrow from the Eco Park Fund and pay it back when the $75,000 annual payment from Southgate Solar comes in?
Wayne?
You could, however, I would recommend, if you want funds to ultimately come from the solar fund, that you have it come from the solar fund now, and it would just be overcommitted to another $2,500. Because the reality is, we are to recognize $75,000 in December of this year. However, my approach to date has been to not count that money until we actually have it. Even though in this particular case, the $75,000 is essentially guaranteed, but this approach I have taken, that if we don't have the money, we should spend it. But we could.
Thank you. Jim?
I just had to research a little bit, just comment to Dave, because Liam and I had a discussion earlier. We came to me about where we were with the project on 39, and we have a budget for $200,000, and the paving came in at basically $182,000. So there's $18,000 for the road work. Part of that is going on right now with dig out the intersection right there to accommodate the paving work. So we are tight in the budget. We could end up being over, but yeah, we may gain in other in my mind, there may be a way to make it work with savings and stuff and keep it from the solar fund, and that goes against what Dave just kind of, but I'm gonna tell you that we're gonna be probably over budget for 39.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments, or figuring on Barb and Jason?
So I do have a question. I know that we had the discussion during budget, and it was proposed that we take money from the solar fund. But isn't solar? I wondered about it at the time. Isn't the solar fund supposed to be for community? I know the road is community improvement, but why would we take it from that fund when most things that we use that for, and I'm not sure if it's supposed to be more of a community, we're going to pave the walkway so that the kids can go to school, and we're going to put up a sign. Because we have to recognize that this, the electronic sign is brought to you by the State Solar Fund, Township of State. We had a sign that recognized the road, the path, the paved path. We had, we recognized the State Solar Fund for the contribution for the Optimist Hall. There's supposed to be some significant advertising in that relationship. How are we doing that with the road upgrade? And was the road upgrade required as a result of all the traffic that went to the solar farm? You might be able to answer it.
Well, I think we're getting a wee bit off the course here, but, we can do that. I mean, the recognition of the roadway, we could put a sign up to do it, but, there's a lot of latitude in, for community events, community improvement. I think we thought that qualified for it. I hesitate I caution council to, just because it's in the East End, it's more of an agriculture event. It could be something that moves from one side of the community to the other. It just so happens that the dedicated people that are doing are out there. But it's an event or a benefit to the agricultural community as a whole, not just that specific area. So I wouldn't penalize the solar fund just because it's out there. That would be my opinion. I think maybe we can take turns funding it one side or the other, or splitting it. But anyway, that should be a consideration, not just because where it's located.
Thank you. Brian?
I agree. There's nervous sheep in eastern Southgate as well. So, it is a...
I caution too that it's not just about sheep either.
No,
It's
not.
an agriculture event.
That's right, and they have ice cream. So, my ultimate attempt here is to get $2,500 for this project. I'm really open to staff to tell me how we can do this, how you want it, the motion. If you don't like the way it's written, tell me how you want it, and as long as we get $2,500 for this event, I'm good. Liam's telling me that we can't take it from the Eco Fund, but we can.
Go ahead, and then Jason.
Well, and there are no formal strings attached to those individual reserve funds. It's more been an approach the council has taken, so that's why I have said what I did. Though council can take it from the Eco Park Reserve, but it's just that was the intent of that fund, or the concept of that fund versus the other fund.
Okay. Jason has something, and I'll let you finish up with that.
Well, it's more of a comment. I agree with Brian. We're an ag community. I'm a bit biased because I'm in that end of it, but the kind of numbers we're throwing around tonight for other things, I think we should be able to find 2,000 somewhere for what's a big part of our community.
Agreed. Brian, you have a proposal?
Well, I was just going to say, I realize the motion belongs to the council now, not me anymore, but I'm happy to do a friendly amendment to fund the $2,500 out of the Eco Park Fund, if the seconder would be happy to.
Okay, and the seconder has agreed, so
I'll rely on the clerk to wordsmith that.
so we can get rid of all the tap sorts things.
Yeah.
Okay, so the
Perfect.
motion now back to the original, the amendment, I guess, is that council approves the contribution of $2,500 to the Holstein Agro Expo funded from the Eco Park Fund. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of that? That is carried. So then the full motion, how about just a motion? Yeah. Is be it resolved, the council receives staff report FIN 2019-022, 2019 grants, donations, and funding received for information, and that council approves a contribution of $2,500 to the Holstein Agro Expo funded from the Eagle Park Fund. Any other discussion on that? All in favor? And that is carried. Well, we took a little bit of a trip, but we got it solved. Oh, be an ask for a recess, so just before we go into the flank stuff, we will take a quick recess. It's over.
Yeah, we made it just before the meeting. Gus turned the burner off. Subject to Grey County, like subject to that kind of that condition with Grey County. What are you gonna buy with the lower bike? I really wasn't trying to dig it as a project. Yeah. Didn't you, didn't you let it go, Mike. Let it go. The wood chip came in with that deal. You buy 2 cat motors from the throw you this wood chipper in for free. I'm pretty sure that was the deal. Give it, come on. Perfect. We have now we want a wood chipper too.
That he would be willing to pay for, between $5,000 to $10,000, $5,000 is what he's gonna cover. So I'm gonna give us extra lights to run underneath our running boards, as well as give us a newer technology sound, so it actually was a low frequency. So you can feel that it actually vibrates within the vehicle, so like when you're driving from behind the vehicle, they can feel vibration in your steering wheel. As well as if you're walking on the sidewalk, you can feel vibration on the sidewalk. Or if it's a kid, they can feel, or again, if you come up to people blare their loud music nowadays in the vehicle, they don't hear the siren, they'll just their ears, they're gonna feel it in their steering wheel. And that's approximately $1,000, and also the lights are about $3,000. And then you have your installation cost. After that, it's around $5,000 on installation. And then the new technology come for that. When we put the truck before the show, they're gonna load it with new stuff too, and then we just get to put that in. So it'll be a surprise. Yeah, you call Dave, right, to make sure that the township would get it. Absolutely, it's a great opportunity. And a great PR.
Yeah, I think it's good idea. I'm not even, you just said something to do with the lane. They make more sound. Okay, well,
Oh, absolutely.
All right, yeah, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, just the way, yeah. WHELEN.
Well, that's just a
Yeah,
should be.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Oh, the
Mr.
right,
Lightning
yes.
and Wayminster Provider. So it's a split DLC, Wayland, all, like I'll pay Lightning, but Wayland is their provider light, so they're gonna provide the extra. That's a little bit for them to the show. Yeah, it was really an opportunity. I was glad I went to the show.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
We had her out most of the day today, and she was doing really well. I'll check. I thought we had opened up.
What did you think of that
Okay.
food security?
That could be my mistake.
I found it ambivalent. It was good kind of information, but what do you do, where do you go?
Why would people were paid to be there? That's my observation.
I thought it was interesting, something.
I was really curious what the principal was saying about coming to school without lunch. About 10 every day.
Yeah, it is kind of strange.
No lunch at the little school.
Yeah, no, those were extra.
And as you said, so they haven't much control from people.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah, exactly. And a number of them are
Like that with our.
Well, if Plato was anything like, as I said, anything like Shelburne, well, I can pay
Yeah.
in there. I think there's 5 or 6 houses like that. I think only one actually was the owner.
So when I was looking at the GST, a lot of for rent and, or those are the tenants, because I have 10,000 down and 1,000. And that is.
Yeah, I don't think it matters for that part. But, you'll just have to go out and put all the new. Yeah, yep. Okay. No problem.
No,
They are, when you look, you get the idea.
Yeah.
oh, no, I could,
I don't have a problem with that.
well, Don said the same thing, she was here last night, he was,
Like no feeling. She could,
it's not like you're gonna jump off the table, you know, just like a dozy and sleeping.
especially when they got you detached, you know.
But you could,
Yeah.
think that, what the hell, and then,
No, that's my
and then
leg.
the saw, you could hear that, and I knew, well, they must be kind of like.
So in a way, that's just
Safe,
their house,
safe.
that's their
Safe
stuff.
line.
Yeah, for sure.
And because they're from the city,
I thought that we moved up there, but I don't think they even know where they're from.
no, it's Gloucester.
But you guys, no, I'm on Tuesday afternoon. We got Monday, our, Tuesday morning. Or you guys can go ahead and.
Are we all ready another week or not?
Okay. Yeah.
But we're still gonna go, we're just planning on going to this open house. Tuesday evening. They have an open house from 6 till 11.
Yeah.
9. It's all over Facebook. I think it's on Facebook.
There's no reason you would know it's on Facebook.
And you got one of these new phones, so it should. I knew.
Okay, we'll call the meeting back to order.
I figured that you were gonna walk there trying to save your hip, your new hip, so you can walk more in the office.
See, the fire chief's being considerate of it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to planners reports. Be it resolved, council received staff report PL 2019-031 for information, and the council consider approval of bylaw number 2019-068 authorizing the entering into a site plan agreement. Do I have a mover? Jason, seconder, Brian? Any discussion on this one? It's pretty straightforward. All in favor? That's carried. Be it resolved that council receives staff report PL 2019-032 for information, and council consider approval of bylaw 2019-069 authorizing the entering into a site plan agreement. Do I have a mover for this? Brian, seconder, Michael. Any discussion? All in favor? And that is carried. Bylaws. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2019-068, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan control agreement, be read a first, second, third time, and finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and entered into the bylaw book. Do I have a mover for this? Jason and Michael? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2019-069, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan control agreement, be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and entered into the bylaw book. Do I have a mover for this? Michael, seconder. Jason, any discussion? All in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2019-072, being a bylaw to prohibit and regulate noise within the township of Southgate, be read a first, second, third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and entered into the bylaw book. Do I have a mover for that? Jim and Barb, any discussion? All in favor? And that is carried. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2019-078, being a bylaw, got some wording things in there, to appoint acting fire prevention officers to the township of Southgate, be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, signed by the mayor and the clerk, sealed with the seal of the corporation, and entered into the bylaw book. By the mover. Jim, seconder. Barb, any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Consent items. Okay. Be it resolved that council approved items on the regular consent agenda dated May 15th, 2019, save and accept item 8.1.9, and direct staff to proceed all necessary administrative actions. Are there any other ones that need to be pulled? Seeing none, I need a mover and seconder for it to state. Jason and Brian? Okay, any discussion on any of those except for 8.1.9? Barb?
8.1.3, the MTO grant. I had the opportunity to dialogue through email with Dave, not knowing for sure that he was going to be here until he responded. So glad you're here. I recently learned that Meaford is discontinuing its local pilot transportation program due to low ridership. I learned that at the Economic Development 101 session last Thursday. The staff member cited it's just not sustainable, and I'm wondering if this would be a good fit for Bang the Table and find out from residents whether or not they want to subsidize that what might be an underutilized transportation system and absorb a plus 2% tax hike eventually. The potential is there. I mean, it's not. Would that be a good fit? for banging the table?
I think I can answer part of this for now, is that I think that would be premature. The county's looking at it in conjunction with us, and what we found out so far is that any venture is going to, into transportation, whether the ridership's there or not, is going to cost extra, and that the county is actually looking at wanting to hire somebody to give us a good report on that, because it's beyond the skills that we have right now. So till we can look and see what numbers are, and we've heard from other people that the grants may only cover 10% of the cost. So till we can find out more information, I think it would be premature to put it out to the public for input. Does that pretty well sum it up, Dave?
Yeah, and I guess it's definitely something we're going to look at some point in time. I know we're interested, I had a conversation by email today with Kim Wingrove at the county. We're interested in what Wellington County are doing. She's meeting with them in the next couple of weeks to discuss what they're doing. We're very fearful of empty buses running up and down the highway. And I mean, when I was at an appointment the other day, we're sitting at an intersection, I see a Grey Bruce Airbus going by, and there was one person in it. And I just envisioned that look to be, that's our transit bus going down the highway with one person in it or empty. So we're taking a very hard look at looking at this thing as maybe it needs to be more of a call for service type environment, because like I think I said this before, if we're looking at someone needing a ride, will they not need a ride to get to the arena, to get picked up, to go down the highway? So we may as well, call for service, you charge more, and they get picked up. And I think there's maybe service providers, but again, this is all just brainstorming and thinking. I think a method of serving that in the coming months may be a tool we can use, but we'll see how it goes. But I did this report to update you as to where we're at, but it's still a journey yet.
Follow up, and then Brian?
Thank you. And the article that I forwarded with regard to the Wellington County look at transportation, we might be able to invite a county councillor to give us an update at some point in time.
He has.
Thank you. Brian?
I think that's a very real concern, Dave. Having worked in the bus industry a number of years, I've done that route, Owen Sound to Toronto, and it is not heavily traveled on a commercial sense. And if there's no profit in it for the commercial operators, that's a tough run. Regularly scheduled bus runs just don't seem to address the concerns. Transportation is a huge issue in our area, there's no question about it. But the scheduled buses are not meeting the needs, and haven't met the needs, or Greyhound would still be running. So, something like SMART, and their numbers are tough to swallow too, but that type of service seems to be what people want. And perhaps if that's what people want, then maybe they're prepared to pay a little more, so that service is more sustainable.
No, and we've had those discussions, but I mean, there's a whole other set of circumstances of their goals and their mission in relation to how they get their funding through gas tax. And so but what that vehicle, I mean, is there a homogeneous mix of SMART on backhauls empty that they can't do a little side deal and do a trip? So I think there's a lot of vehicles sitting around the community that we see going up and down the road from Elmira that maybe through the day they could, so we've got to.
Uber is it, I don't.
And maybe Uber is it, but then you hear the stories out of,
It's not perfect.
over to the east, and they're having to throw another $1 million at it because it's so popular over there. So, but that's a point-to-point service. That's why it's successful, but anyway, I think there's people with needs, just how do we get that need and how do you fund it?
And just to add, even with the SMART transit thing, the other thing we're up against with all of this is the provincial regulations on the handicap transportation as compared to regular transportation. And if you put people that aren't qualified onto as passengers, then you may lose the gas tax funding, and like it just, so it's a big picture thing. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Was there anything else that anyone wanted to comment on in that? Mark?
I noticed it said that it was a 5-year grant, and now it's been pushed back to a 4-year project window. With all this discussion I've just heard, is that a possibility? Because it looks like there's a lot of planning that'll take more than 1 year.
Well, yeah, so, anyway, you would think when the province says we're going ahead a year ago, and then the new regime comes and they stop it, and then they come again and they say, okay, we're going ahead again, that starting and stopping would be kind of a pause, and they start the grant once they restarted it the second time. But no, they're not changing any of the time frames, because I submitted it and moved all my dates forward, and they said, no, it's still the same time frame from 2018, 2000, whatever, 22 or 23. So we had to adjust everything accordingly. But it's really just a 4-year project now.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? That is carried. Thank you. Next is be it resolved, Council, 8.1.9.
8.1.9.
Okay. We'll look at 8.1.9. No, I just had to miss it. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion here, be it resolved. Okay, tell you what, you're gonna read it.
Yeah, be resolved, the council received minutes of the Recreation Advisory Committee from May 2nd, 2019 for information, and that council approved a grant of $250 to the Dundalk Halloween Association for their 2019 Halloween event, and that this grant is funded from the Eco Park Community Reserves.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Brian, any questions or comments? Barbara?
So, I understand, I've been following the Dundalk Community Halloween event, and they're looking to collaborate with Youth Action Committee. They're reaching out to Generation Connection, who holds a Halloween dance the Friday night, and they're collaborating with the Lions Club for their Halloween costume, skate, and movie Saturday night. So this group is actually reaching out to their organizations and trying to get this off the ground. They are still in their planning stages, so I would be supportive of it. I'm wondering how, it actually, last year, the Trick or Treat had a lot of kids out. It's very youth-oriented, children-oriented, as well as hopefully they're looking at a haunted house, possibly a zombie walk that might attract the teens out as well, and I'm supportive of it. I'm just wondering why only $250?
Thank you.
To be honest, that was the number that was given to me, and today they thought it was enough, because if they don't partnership with the other associations, the McIntyre building is still open for them, so all else fails, they will go there and do their original idea. The funny thing is that the Recreation Committee had a monitor on display showing the Lions event, and I don't live in Dundalk, I didn't know about it. She does live in Dundalk and didn't know about it. And seeing that video sparked, they're so pumped up about it, that sparked another wave of thinking, saying, hey, we're going to go talk to these people, let's find it up. So, people in the group, there's one lady who, quite a few of them just moved into town, so maybe that's where the spirit's coming from, I don't know. There's one lady who, just like the one person on Victoria Street, just go nuts with the outside. They already have props, so I think more $250 just for candy, a few extra props and decorating, so that's why the amount.
other, Dave?
So this may sound strange, but Liam and I were just talking, and because 450 isn't going to the other project, we think this 250 would be better suited out of the donations piece because it's smaller amount. Let's get them into that regime of funding, and we'll do an application, and get them into that regime so they can go through that process next year. I think that would be cleaner.
Right, sounds great.
Okay, that's,
Well, we're just
yeah.
this is a better fit for that fund, really.
Okay.
Small amounts coming out of the eco parks is hard to track.
we need an amendment, or can we do a friendly between the mover and seconder, that's where it comes from? Okay, thank you. So we've changed that from the grant being funded from the Eco Park Community Reserves to being funded from our donations and grants and budget. Okay, any other, yep.
So Dave, will they come in to do the application, or is it online, or?
Well, we'll use
Staff can work that in.
resolution as direction to do it, and it would be good at some point to work with them to do that.
Yeah.
And if you could facilitate them, come up in.
Okay, Liam?
Just want to comment that I would say the resolution is fine for 2019, but for 2020, the filing deadline is December 1st, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, right after this event is when they need to be submitting their Policy 3 application for 2020 funding.
Yeah, thank you.
To your education.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Okay, the next one is, be it resolved, council received the items on the correspondence consent agenda dated May 15th, 2019. Save and accept items and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Do I have any items that are to be pulled? Seeing none, go ahead and mover and seconder. Brian and Michael. Discussion on it. Barbara.
To the chair, the Wellington North Board shareholders meeting 8.2.9. I was appointed in the prior term of council to go as the scrutineer, but generally the mayor or designate plus the CAO do attend, and it is a dinner event. We have received an invitation, but it is a dinner event, and I do encourage people to RSVP so that they know how many people to order the lasagna for. And the only other one that I actually want to mention is the 8.2.3, and congratulate our Madam Clerk for her being accredited as a municipal clerk and being recognized internationally now. It's a small number at the moment, but
Yeah.
it's a small number at the moment, but it's growing, and congratulations.
Yes, congratulations. Internationally, that's like in Wellington County too and everything. Oh, okay. Yes, congratulations, and we're seeing it more and more, the qualifications from different staff members and the courses they're taking, and it's a real a joy for me to see this type of stuff. I believe that the taxpayers get more and more out of
Feather in the cap and so it would.
another feather in the cap of Southgate. Yes, so congratulations, Joanne. Any other, Mark?
8213, the Grey Goose Pride, out of respect for the two delegates there, we should at least have a discussion. I don't know if there is any policy with that flag raising, or whatever we did last year, or whatever, I don't know, so.
To give you a background on last year, council decided exactly what the delegation at the forum had requested was, the discussion was that we didn't want any flags flown, except for the municipal, provincial, and federal. So we did not support it last year.
I was quite surprised when she said about that, because, the different three flags, and only the three flags, because I remember when my dad decided we were gonna be Canadian citizens, I remember him saying that was the first and only thing, that flag, that's what they were. Always too, and, you know, it had the Ontario flag of orange though. So just remember that, no other flag. Because by right, having a faith, I can ask for a flag to get put up on Easter. You know, the red flag can be asked to be put up in the Ramadan. So I just from it's the government house, I do tend to agree with what was said. So that's the end of it. That's the end of it.
Okay, thank you. Barbara?
Through the chair, I don't know that we actually established a formal policy.
We did not.
And I'm wondering if that's something that we as a council want to request staff to bring forward so that these requests, you know, they can look at that and we have a policy in place, guideline, procedure. Dave?
Yeah, we do have a flag policy. We'll have to pull it off the shelf and just see what scope it is. Yeah.
Yep.
But we do, when we've kind of come to this before, the only thing that was more related to at the time was the passing of certain individuals and recognition of that. So we'll have to dust it off and see what the scope of it is and try and take care of this kind of thing.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, I guess I would have to say that I have no concerns with their request. I think we're a very inclusive community. I'm not suggesting that it should be put up in place of the Canadian flag, because the Canadian flag certainly does represent all of us. But I have no concern with the request, and I think Owen Sound and many other municipalities have gone through this, and Owen Sound, I think, has developed a fairly robust flag raising policy. So I'd certainly be interested in having staff bring back a report on what could be put in place to deal with these requests, because I agree, you extend the courtesy to one group, there'll be other groups come forward with similar requests. So I don't think it would be a travesty to see a report on what other communities have done.
Yep, agreed. We didn't pull this motion, so I don't know. Okay. So is that what we'd like to do, is to, Barbara?
So even though we didn't realize that we were going to have this discussion and come up with, you know, direction to staff to bring back a policy, is it something that we, you know, I'm going to look to staff and the clerk, we can always amend the resolution and pull it, but if we're going to look at policy that we currently have and determine what we need going forward, then we don't really need a resolution at this present time.
Through Mayor, members of council, as the CAO said, we probably do have a policy. All we need to do is look at it, and we're already going through a thorough review of all of our policies, so I don't think that is necessary at this point to have that direction, but I think we'll do it anyway.
Okay, thank you. All right.
So for clarity, this letter requests that we fly the flag at some period during Pride Month, which is June. By adopting the correspondence, will we be flying the flag or not?
Well, based on past practices, I would say we would not be, because we haven't adopted
But we would need a motion, would we not, to deny this letter? Because it's a request, or how do you deal with that, with this? To be honest, I'm not sure how you do that.
So is it in consent?
Yeah.
And it says they request the flag to be flown 2 weeks in June,
Which is Pride Month. And the resolution says that staff will proceed with all administrative matters to fulfill the requests in all of the correspondence unless it's removed, right? Is that correct?
Through the chair to members of council, so when we do this, if there is a actual direction or something that's being very clear, this is a request, but it's still, in order to fly a flag, you do need a resolution to do so. So that's the difference with a request like this, and I probably have a few of them throughout the year, and it's just where, yeah, I'll talk anything health related or we're doing is receiving and filing it. That's basically what we're doing, unless we're getting direction to specifically fly any flight or do anything outside of receiving and filing. There's some resolutions or there's some pieces of correspondence that say, that something be forwarded to the minister's office, whatever it is, that we take direction to do it unless otherwise told.
Martin?
At the end of the letter, it says, we invite you to reply regarding our flag raising request. So it's not, that line sums it up as far as I'm concerned.
I would agree with the clerk, we need direction to do that, and we haven't received direction. You're just receiving this letter, no file, on to the next.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions or comments on the consent items? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Be it resolved, the council receive the items on the resolutions of other municipalities consent agenda dated May 15th, 2019. Save and accept any items. Save and accept item 8.3.1 and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Do I have a mover for that? Barbara, seconder? Jason? Any discussion on 8.3.2? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Okay, 8.3.1. I have a motion here. Be it resolved, council receive 8.3.1 for information, and that council direct staff to prepare a letter of support for the resolution, and staff be directed to forward a letter to support all Ontario municipalities and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. So,
Just went off the rail there a little bit.
yeah.
So through mayor, members of council, so what this is there was two resolutions that were here. We'll build the one that better fit what Councillor Shipton was looking for. So we just received and filed 8.3.2, but Councillor Shipton will speak to 8.3.1 as he has a resolution that he'd like to put forward. So they're the same, but they're different. We're just pulling the one to make that recommendation resolution. They're the same.
Yeah,
They're the same, but completely different.
yeah, they are the same but completely different. They're all about the funding cuts for the libraries and the interloan library system and the letters that the ministry put out. So be it resolved that council receive item 831 for information, and that council direct staff to prepare a letter of support for the resolution, and that staff be directed toward the letter of support to Ontario municipalities and to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. And the only reason I look at this is because I'm on the library board, and before even being elected, and I know from the stats of the interlibrary loan service that in rural Ontario and obviously in northern Ontario, in the letter where the minister stated, well, it's cost cutting, it's efficiency, getting rid of the vans and the drivers, you can do it by mail or courier. Well, Macy or CAO is saying, well, there's not even money in the budget. You get 12 books go out. We're understaffed as it is according to the per capita. So they have to take people away from programs and their own work to do something as silly as putting up 12 books into the mail, where it was all. And so it's a cost efficiency money-wise, but it's causing deficiencies in other areas where some people, and I'm talking rural, not city, urban libraries. So it's a good call just to say there's problems with because the letter, to me, it was a letter of deferment saying, we're giving you $25 million for libraries, which is a drop in the bucket. And then it's saying, and it wasn't our fault, yes, the library board or so whatever. Yeah, on the library, so it was their fault. They chose to pick that. You can use mail. Well, it doesn't work in rural Ontario. It's just it just wouldn't work.
Before we move on any more, The motion's moved, not seconded so far. Brian seconded, there, now we can go. Dave had something and Brian had something.
So Lacey and I had a fairly lengthy conversation on this, and I kind of took the negative side of, well, fine, they're being cut, but what's the real story here? I would suggest that just be careful. I mean, we can write these letters and they'll just go around like everybody will do one, but did we really take a deep dive into what they're trying to do? And what I understand the system is they have these vans and drivers running all over the place, and I kind of envision it like, is this just another transit system running empty? You know, like, could you not hire UPS to make do it? And I think this is what the province is looking at. Can we do the same with half as much? And I challenge the library board to dig into this and say, okay, so you got half of the money. Maybe we'll take these library loans every other week and let's put it through UPS and see what that can get done. That's my, like, you know, we can write a letter and it'll be honest, I hate to say it, it'll be a waste of time because everybody else will write one too. But did these two municipalities take a deep dive into it, really comprehend and understand it? I don't know, I can't answer that question, or is it just a retaliatory letter to say the province, you've messed this up again? So, you know, the conservation authorities are going through the same thing, they're getting cut, and so I think it would be more advantageous for us to try and find a better way, and if there isn't a better way, then write the letter, I agree. Okay. But I think they're doing it for a reason, and they must have done their research, and I don't know what that is, and maybe they're wrong, but, you know, if it's better us paying for, you know, maybe it's going to increase our budget a bit, but if it's going to be more efficient for the taxpayers in the end, you know, we can save all this money. I don't know the answer, but I'm just saying, let's take a more microscopic look at it.
Thank you. Brian, then Bart.
It's always interesting to see who defends and attacks things compared to the last number of years, but nonetheless, this almost sounds like a download from the province. I mean, they're cutting our budget, they're cutting their budget, so they're not sending as much money, but they're asking us, the lower tiers, to do more work, which is going to cost us more money.
That's not what they're saying.
That's just what I heard the member from
Well,
the library board tell me.
But I think there's still money there to do it. They just
Not as much, so it's a budget cut.
No, they've got these people running around in vans.
It's a budget cut.
Well, it is.
Thank
But
you.
it's a budget cut. It's a budget cut to the conservation authorities. They must have some justification. So I just suggest that before we write letters, we should do a deeper dive into why they do it. And maybe
Be very illuminating
maybe
to find out why they did it.
maybe the letter writing is appropriate, but maybe it's not. Maybe we can help solve the problem. Because there's two ways to look at it. I mean, you can either jump on board the ship that's going down, or you can maybe get on a sailboat that's heading across and going to save money.
Sounds like a good idea
But,
right now.
but you know what? You have a choice.
Well,
There is no
absolutely.
choice. So
Absolutely.
we may as well try and make some chicken salad out of what we got.
But just to take whatever's coming down the river, is that a strategy too? Or do you push back a little bit?
Well, maybe there's a more efficient way to do it. That's all I'm suggesting. It's like, let's, you know, why are couriers running up and down the road? Because they're delivering to a whole bunch of places. This van is delivering to one place in Dundalk. That's it. They got to do it more efficiently, I would think. But let's do a deeper dive into it. I would like to get involved myself to figure it out.
All right.
Because you know, one organization shoving books out there, can you, yeah, okay. My blood pressure is up.
Bart?
So through the chair, and I looked at these and I initially thought that, you know, maybe we want to support it and let the province know how disappointed we are. But we received another letter also from the government, the province, basically fighting back and saying, you know what, it's an inefficient system, look for ways to modernize the service. They've given us, every municipality, money to look at service delivery efficiencies. They are encouraging us to collaborate with our neighbors. Is you know, another amalgamation in sight? I know that, you know, other members of council have, you know, put that out there. But I agree with Dave in a way. I thought of bringing the same resolution, Martin. I agree that it's hard to sit back and just take it, but Lacey, the librarian in Southgate, is interested in looking at options, but everybody across Ontario is just wanting to, fight back. But why don't we look at maybe every 2 weeks instead of every week, or and look at another system. Municipalities in the past probably had, I know companies that have multiple locations will have an intercompany delivery system. Once a week, mail goes out to each of the locations. I think there's options available if people would come to the table and try to look for a solution. And while it's frustrating to get that budget cut, that half, it's wiped out because we can't deliver it. They bring it in 4 months into our budget year. We've already, committed the funds. It is a very worthwhile service. There are people who can't get to the library, who can't go to, Toronto to get the book that they want, that can't even get to the local library. And we have to look at that service delivery. But I think right at the moment, maybe we need to be talking to the rest of the libraries within county and within our outside, to Wellington County, to Simcoe County and Grey Bruce, to find out how we can collaborate through mutual counties, like our borders. Because I know the numbers of books that have been shared is tremendous, and it is a worthwhile service.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions on the motion?
Just a topic of discussion.
How would you feel about being on the health unit? Like they're, and conservation authority, but
Yep.
There was a show on, and this is not, it's part of this discussion, but there was a show on Steve Payne, and many people have seen him. They had this discussion about the health units. And it come out there that, what are the health units doing studies on AstroTurf for? And that's the reason for some of these cuts, because they're going places they don't belong. So, anyway.
Okay. Any further discussion or comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Let's see how the numbers work. Yep. Yep, he's doing it. We should have music like from Jeopardy or something for when we're waiting. Yeah. And that's 2 for, 4 against, and 1 abstains. The motion is lost. So that motion lost. We do need a motion to receive the item, that item on our consent agenda. For information. Barb will move it. Do we have a seconder? Martin will second it. Any further discussion? That's for 8.3.1. That's moved for information. I'll move in a minute. All in favor? That is carried. There's no closed session, no new business. County report. At the county, we had presentations from the Georgian College and Saugeen Conservation Authority, as well as there was some there from the our tourism department. And one of the common themes that came out was transportation and high-speed internet for most of them. With our tourism part of the county, we have somebody from Southgate working there. Maybe the press will research the person, see what they're like. May Fernandez is working with the county for the summer, and so it was good seeing her there. And it'll be good to see what she's doing. Apparently she's out on the road for a bit. So Virgin College is working on programs. The big push will be for more apprenticeship type programs, more technical, that type of stuff working. But it, again, like everything else, has to do so many hoops, and they're allowed only so many programs for different apprenticeships at a time. So with that, the conservation authorities are worried about their cuts. And although the presentation was from Grey Sabo Conservation Authority, the Saugeen Valley was there as well, and was added in on that. The tenders were awarded for the project downtown in Dundalk, and again, that will be confirmed at the next meeting. Wasn't much else going on, Brian, was there? I think that was pretty well read. Any questions on that? Oh, just a second, there's the EBR, and also for, I just have to look it up here too. No, it was a county thing that it came up. Just have to see where I put the information.
Just while you're looking for that, I can tell you, when you mentioned the health unit, the province has said that as of April 1st next year, Grey Bruce, Huron, and Perth will be amalgamated into one regional health unit under an autonomous board, whatever that means. Speculation suggests that maybe they're going to do away with the provincial appointed members of the board. That's speculation. The other thing is that the board will be one of three in the province will have sub 1 million population. And the funding model will be 70% province, 30% municipalities. And that will stay that way. Some health units, the funding model will change over time, but that 70-30 split will remain unchanged for those three that have less than 1 million population for the time being. I think it's 90-10. But there's some, so the county will take a hit, both counties will take a hit budget-wise. I think it was to the tune of $500,000 for this year alone. So, you know, there's going to be some creative accounting going on up there, or some efficiency found. So, anyway, that's kind of an update on the health unit.
And I think that's going to be our story for this year with things. I was at the long-term care committee meeting yesterday with the warden and a couple other councillors that were there, and that was one of the things with the different cuts, whether it's through the health board or conservation authorities or whatever. It's going to be redoing the budget on the fly type of thing this year, trying to figure out how to make things work. And as things change, there's more and more pressure for the county to take over things, so on different levels. Oops, I made it disappear. There we go. This environmental registry is about modernizing the conservation. I'll take a break for a second here to get modernizing the Conservation Authorities Act, and it's only the registry is only open until May 21st for comment. So I think if anybody has any comments on that, it would be good. It's the link is on our website here as well. Any questions or comments on the county report? I think you'll be hearing a lot about money this year. Okay. Member's privilege. Anybody have anything they'd like to share? Brian?
The Holstein Drama Group is putting on Calendar Girls. Their inaugural weekend was last weekend, opening weekend. They had a full house. And they play again this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. Not sure if there's any tickets left or not. Campbell's not in the play. I'm sure he's a big... He was there on Sunday, so there you go. Yeah, so it's a very good production, so I understand.
Thank you. Barb?
And to add to that, all proceeds go to the Mount Forest Hospital
Foundation.
Foundation.
Thank you.
Foundation, thank you. If I just may add to that, I was going to talk about Southgate Farmers Market, but it was delightful to see the market organizer come. She had shared with me last Thursday the email. It kind of came out of the blue. It was, I just wanted to elaborate what she was talking about. This survey was from the Peterborough Farmers Market. They had put out 175 surveys. They got 62 responses, and several of those responses commented, we don't know from where, that perhaps they should be reaching out to the Southgate Community Farmers Market for best practices. So for a market that's only been operational for a year, they are making an impact beyond our borders. So congratulations to them. And I was also at Misty Meadows. The construction is moving along, and they hope to be open beginning of June, and they're still planning their grand opening in July. So it's coming along, and they're going to have patio as like outside lunch, breakfast service, and indoor as well. So that looks like it might be year-round.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have any? I'll just share, I was able to, most people have heard now about the young woman with her child that didn't really know many people around, and I was able to drop out to the park on Saturday, and for 15, 20 minutes, but it was really good just to see the community respond with no organization whatsoever, just everybody turning up, and don't know how many friends she made that day. She was pretty overwhelmed with people coming and talking to her and that, but it's, you know, at times we can hear different complaints and things about the community, and I think we have to keep our focus on that it is a really good community and community-spirited township, and not just within our borders, but in the surrounding areas as well, because none of us can live in the vacuum. So it was just really nice to be a witness to that, and hats off to our fire chief, who a couple of his people decided to take the truck over for them as well. So that was really good. So seeing no other good news and celebration, be it resolved, council proceed into closed session at 9:37 in order to address matters relating to personal. Point of order, yes.
I'm wondering if, because we're in open still, we should have a motion to go
Yes, we
past
should.
10, just in case, and then,
Yes.
thank you.
Do you remove it?
I would so move that we go past 10.
Okay, seconder, Michael, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, that one's carried. Thank you, Barb. Be it resolved, council proceed into closed session at 9:38. Yeah. In order to address matters relating to personal matters about identifiable individuals, subject to CAO performance review update, staff report CL 2019-014C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land, but subject to Eco Park land sale to Canadian Hardware and Fence update, a proposed disposition of municipal land, subject to Eco Park land sale to... We duplicated that by mistake, so we'll add that part in. And that the clerk, Joanne Hyde, CAO Dave Milner, and the EDO Glenn Walker remain in attendance. Do I have a mover for that? Jason and Michael, all in favor? That is carried, and we'll recess for a few minutes.